welcome Ijoma Onyato tonight. The president makes his strongest comments yet on the anti-graft war, describes corruption persons as insane. It's 2 years since the abduction of Chibok schoolgirls. Federal government says their return is still a priority. Department of State Service continues crackdown on Boko Haram members, arrests another leader and other suspects. An Egyptian president hits back at his critics over Red Sea Island.
On Business News tonight, shareholders of Afriland Properties commend the board and management of the company for an impressive performance in 2015.
And on Sports News tonight, French Football Federation rules out Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema from the Euro 2016 Championship.
And from Abuja, I'm Yemisi Ipaye. At long last, the Senate begins debate on the petroleum industry bill, raising hope for reforms in the sector.
The president today affirmed that he'll carry on with the crusade against corruption in the country. President Muhammadu Buhari, who is in China, told members of the Nigerian community in Beijing that he's committed to winning the war against corruption. He says, quote, "I ask for your support to make our vision of stamping out corruption a reality in the shortest possible time. Whoever is caught will not be spared. The government is still being dared, but those who are sensible should have learnt a lesson. Those who are mad, let them continue in their madness. We will deal with them the way we dealt with Boko Haram," end of quote. President Buhari gave the Nigerian community the assurance that his administration is fulfilling its promise to improve security and socio-economic conditions across the country. On pipeline vandalism, the president warned vandals and saboteurs blowing up oil and gas installations in Nigeria to desist immediately or face the same drastic action being taken against Boko Haram insurgents. The president is on a week-long official visit to China to improve bilateral relations while improving some infrastructure, including rail, manufacturing and agriculture. Now, the federal government says it cannot give a time frame for the return of over 200 schoolgirls abducted from a secondary school in Chibok, Borno State. However, the government does give the assurance that all will be done to secure their safe release. At an event to mark the second anniversary since the abduction of the schoolgirls, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, refuted claims that the government is not making enough effort to rescue the girls. Our correspondent, Amaka Okafo, reports.
An emotional Fatima Salihu is a victim of the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. She recalls her experience in the hands of the Boko Haram insurgents and what life has become for her and many others like her since then.
Now I don't know anything that I will do in my life. We lost everything, me and my father and mother. And I thank God.
Thank you very much.
Also sharing their experience are members of the civil society groups who have visited Chibok and Biu in Borno State to aid the displaced persons as a result of the insurgency. They want government to match its words with action.
The Biu camp in particular, and this is just, the Biu camp typifies or is just an example of several other camps, where there are several young people, young girls, young boys, who can no longer go to school because of the current situation of things. Please, Your Excellencies, and everyone here, in all of this, what can be done immediately so that we are not unconsciously setting up these IDPs for another life?
Nigeria's vice president, however, says contrary to insinuations, the return of the over 200 schoolgirls abducted from a secondary school in Chibok has continued to be in the front burner of government's war against terrorism.
We must exercise some caution and patience and not sound as if, well, this can be done, but it's not being done. I don't think that that's right. I believe that everything that can be done, especially with respect to the rescue of those girls, is being done. But there are, of course, challenges, and we're trying to address those challenges.
The participants at this event speak of their expectations, and they are hopeful that it will not be another talk shop.
First of all, I expect to see the Chibok girls have been restored to their families, and that we will have commenced the possibly long process of rehabilitating them, as I said, in every way that we can. When we get to another year, I expect that the issue of the internally displaced persons would in the first place, their accommodation, their education, their health, those would all be provided for as a matter of course.
The consensus at this event is that there needs to be a collaboration between the government and the civil populace and even the international community to not just halt the increasing number of vulnerable people, especially in the northeast, but to eventually win the terror. Amaka Okafu, Channels Television News. Terror. Amaka Okafu, Channels Television News.
In commemoration of acts by the terrorists, the governor of the state, Kashim Shettima, will be leading a delegation to the town, and other state governors from the north are also expected at the ceremony. In Abuja, members of the Bring Back Our Girls campaigners will be holding a march to the State House and some other parts of the city. The Chibok girls were kidnapped from their hostels at Government Secondary School Chibok, Borno State on April the 14th, 2014. Their kidnap drew both local and international condemnation from groups, among them the Bring Back Our Girls campaigners, the Nigeria Civil Rights Group, religious bodies and many prominent citizens. There are also strong condemnations from the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, US First Lady Michelle Obama and girls' education advocate Malala Yousafzai. Now, one of the groups that's been in the forefront of the campaign for the return of the Chibok girls is the Bring Back Our Girls campaigners. One of the conveners is Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, and she joins me from Abuja tonight. Thank you so much, Dr. Ezekwesili, for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you.
2 years have gone by. The girls are yet to return. What concerns you the most about this?
What concerns me the most is the possibility that inertia might set in. There is always the possibility of fatigue when an issue has been so prolonged. That worries me. Bureaucratic inertia, not because perhaps the leaders aren't making the promises, but simply because the systems are not aligned to take action on those promises. That worries me.
Well, the Vice President had said at a forum in Abuja that the return of the girls remains a priority. Does that promise give you more hope than you feel right now?
Well, one promise that gave us tremendous hope was when the president in his inauguration speech said that we will not claim that we have defeated Boko Haram without the rescue of our Chibok girls and other abducted citizens of Nigeria. When that line was read during his inauguration, we of the movement and the parents became very excited at the possibility that the long advocacy for their rescue was finally going to come to an end with a positive closure. Unfortunately, when we met the president 7 months after, following our earlier meeting with him in July, when he still sounded very, very strong and persuasive on this, our meeting in January wasn't quite the same way. When the president reaffirmed what he said in a presidential chat, that he lacked credible intelligence on the whereabouts of the girls. That was so devastating. It was devastating for the families. It was devastating for our movement. And so when I hear the vice president say that they attach priority to this. That sounds good. What we just want would be the actions that lead to results. This is time to act for results. 2 years is too long a time for children who went to school to find themselves in the enclave of terrorists.
Okay, let's talk about your plans for tomorrow. Your group is planning a march to the presidential villa in addition to some other areas. What will be your message this time around to them?
Our message would be a number of things. It would be first, following from some of the things we said to the president in January. We had said then that there are a number of leads on these girls, whether they are accurate or inaccurate. We need to get a sense that they are being exhaustively pursued. We heard from the president about the lack of credible intelligence. We also then said that there had been countries with superior intelligence capabilities that had showed up when the girls were first abducted. Can we get those countries back to the table? Because they left after a while or scaled down their operations because they didn't get the kind of full cooperation under the previous administration. There shouldn't be a repeat of that this time. Get them into a war room situation, connect all the intelligence assets that are possible and work with it and get our girls out. And then ensure that there is progress report on how things are going. When there is absolutely no progress report, no feedback on the status of rescue operations, people tend to believe that nothing is being done. Governance is about responsiveness to the quest for information by citizens. That's what accountability is about. We need to see more of that concerning the girls.
Co-convener Bring Back Our Girls campaign, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on the news at 10 tonight. And in part two, after the break, the Senate begins debate on the petroleum industry bill, raising hope for reforms in the sector. That's in a moment. Do join us again.